You're a rugby player playing for Brazil, and your girlfriend has a very public proposal at the Olympics.
It was crazy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Gay Rugby Podcast. I'm Jack.
I'm Ozzie.
And today we're joined by two-time Olympic rugby player Izzy Cerullo.
Hello, hello. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. And we're excited to ask you a bunch of questions. So let's get ready to rock.
Let's do it.
Give me.
There we go. Woo. So, Izzy, obviously you're a very experienced rugby player. But have you always played rugby, and how did you get interested and involved in the sport?
Yeah, I actually only discovered rugby in college when I was 19 or 20. So I grew up playing soccer. My parents are Brazilian, so as soon as I could walk, my dad put a soccer ball at my foot. I was like, hoorah, she's actually pretty good at this. And I have 3 brothers, so I'm a triplet. So 2 brothers my age, and we have an older brother. The whole gang played soccer, and for a while when I first started, I was really competitive right from the start, and it turns out parents don't like it when you score 8 goals a game when you're 6, which, whatever, we're there to play sports. So my dad just put me on my brother's team, which, again, the parents also don't like it when a girl is on the boys rugby team or boys soccer team. But for me, it was great because I got to get a more competitive game right from the start, and then when everyone hit puberty, I started playing an age grade up on the girls team, and then varsity and club in high school. So it was like trying to maximize my soccer experience. It was always my outlet. My parents were so encouraging, but then when it came time for college, my dad was like, absolutely not, no sports scholarships in this family. You go to college on merit alone, because athletes are gifted and you put a lot of effort in, and so you also are good in school, and so this will be your path. Like, study hard, a lot of doors will open, and leave soccer and sports for fun. And so that's what I did. And I was a little disappointed when I was like 16 and realized that I actually could not go pro in soccer because my parents wouldn't let me, but really grateful for that, kind of their direction at that age. And then, in college was just kind of finding my footing first year, playing intramural soccer. And then my friend was on the men's team, and he's like, come watch a match. And I was like, a match? You call it a match? I don't even know what this sport is. But I went to a game, as I called it at the time, and was immediately just like captivated. I had no idea what was going on. I did not know any of the rules. There was like this thing where people do this thing together, and then there's not, and then they're running around and people are hitting each other, but it seems there are rules.
I've been playing rugby for 5 years, and I feel like I'm still trying to figure out the rules.
That sounded like
time.
a good way to describe it.
Or organized chaos is the best way to describe it.
As a coach, I say embrace the chaos. But I just was so captivated by it. I was there alone because I couldn't convince any of my friends to go watch a match that we had never heard of before.
On the pitch?
Yeah, on the pitch. But so I was there, and then the part of the women's team was at the stadium watching, kind of noticed me like on my own, just like yelling pretty enthusiastically occasionally. And the captain of the women's team came over, and she's like, you look athletic, but I've never seen you before. At the time, I did not know if that was like getting hit on. I didn't not like it. And then, it was just like, it was a why not moment of like, well, yeah, cool. I have an invitation to try this thing that I found really cool, and it wasn't at all on my radar. And I went to practice next week in October 2010, and I have not stopped since.
That's
awesome.
Amazing. How did you do your first day at practice?
I had no idea what I was doing. And I even they had kind of I joined like mid season. And so they just put me on the wing like the next game, and I was frustrated that the ball doesn't make it out to the wing very often at that level. So one of the things I asked my coach, besides like, what are the rules? How do I learn this? And fantastically, she was like, watch as much rugby as you can. So I was like in the library at midnight trying to study and like having a game on YouTube.
It's the best way to learn.
Yeah.
You just got to watch.
You have to watch. It's repertoire. It's your brain has to absorb just a lot of like game situations.
And you just kind of figure it out, right? No one has to like call it out.
Yeah.
You just see it and you're like, okay, identify what that is.
It starts to make sense.
Yeah.
No matter how much you practice, something is always going to be...
It is the game that teaches you.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I was just trying to like learn as much as I could on my own. And then I was like, how do I get hands on the ball sooner? Like, do I have to wait on the wing? And she's like, her eyes are just like, I was waiting for you to ask. And then she like put me at scrum half.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, that first practice, I was always in front of the ball. And then we did like a little contact thing, and I was like, I'm not a fan of that. So yeah, it took me a while to like get used to tackling or like know how to do it. And yeah, to this day, it's one of those things I tell people, you don't have to automatically be good at it. In rugby,
That's fair.
yeah, what kept me there, even from the first practice, was just such a diverse group of people that seemed to all be best friends and be like the funniest people I'd ever met.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, everyone's so cool and comfortable with themselves, and just like filled my cup in a way that I didn't even know I really needed.
Yeah, and I that's what I like about rugby, particularly. I mean, I'm sure all of rugby is this way, but our inclusive teams, you feel at home no matter where you are. We've said before that when we travel, sometimes we'll run into like other ruggers, or we'll go participate in their practices. And it feels like you're practicing with your friends back home.
Yes.
Like it's just that welcoming.
Yeah. And I've bounced around a bit. So I went to college in New York, and then I spent a year in Philly before moving to Brazil, and like spent summers in Boston for like summer internships. And everywhere I would go, the first thing I would do was look up a rugby team.
Yeah.
And that's like, you're guaranteed 20 friends. Like you're guaranteed.
The best way to make friends. for
Best way to
sure.
make friends. You just go to rugby practice. And,
Drinking buddies. Not that I'm encouraging drinking, but
but it is like anyone, you're like, I just like want to hang out with people, or like just have a consistency in your life. And for me, that really grateful. Now that I've traveled the world, I can go to like 20 countries, and like the first thing I do will be like look up, have I played either against someone or on a club with someone who's like now scattered around the world. Like guaranteed I'll know at least 20 people, hopefully more, just because you look up the local rugby team.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So
awesome.
So you played 15s and 7s.
Yeah.
How did you go from 15s to 7s, and which one do you like better?
Oh, everyone always asks which one I like better. So I started in 15s because it's the primary form of rugby in the U.S. during the year, and 7s is the summer variety. So played 15s my first season with Columbia University, and then over the summer I was like, I don't want to stop playing, but I'm going to be at this internship right outside Boston. And my coach is like, well, look up a rugby team. And by the way, you have to learn how to play 7s. So I emailed the team and was like, I don't know how to play 7s. They're like, we'll teach you. All good. And 7s is fun. Like for me, it was a great way. Like I was still pretty rusty on the 15s, like didn't really know what was happening. The fun story, like when I was playing 15s, I started on the wing, and then we needed a scrum half because our primary scrum half got injured or couldn't play in a game. And I got slotted in because I had been working on my passing and like had the fitness to just run around for most of the time. But as a back, I didn't know that the forwards got the ball. They clean our rucks, and they're really good at it. And so they kept calling for the ball, and I kept not giving them the ball for literally 40 minutes. And at halftime,
I want to say thank you on behalf of all backs. Thank you for that.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to all the forwards out there. Like our 8-man, like she almost just got me by the collar and was like, when I'm asking for the ball, you better
Give me the ball.
And I looked at her and I looked at the coach. I was like, what do you mean? So again, you don't have to be good at it when you start. Like it's great that forwards get the ball. They do great things. They don't just clean rucks.
And I just want to jump in because I think we have a lot of fans who are actually unfamiliar with rugby.
Well, this is where I get to.
So I think just talking about the difference between 15s and 7s. Basically, 15s, there are 15 rugby players on the field.
Per side.
Per side, yes.
31 people, including the ref, on that field. A lot of bodies.
So it can get a little crowded. And then 7s is half that. There's 7 people per side.
Yeah, and then also same size pitch, mostly the same rules. There's some kicking varieties. But 7-minute halves in 7s.
It's
so
fast.
It's fast.
7v7,
really quick.
14 minutes total. That's like a pee break. You miss the game that you wanted to watch. Like it's
it's
crazy.
a lot more real estate that you guys are traveling, right? I mean, so it's definitely like a marathon for sure.
Yeah, and then 7s you'll play multiple games a day, so you can create these like really fun tournaments where you'll see multiple teams over the course of a couple days. and everyone gets a lot of playing time. And then 15s, like that 1 80-minute match is what you'll see.
Yeah.
And then the difference is like 15s is very strategic. You have 80 minutes to try to beat the other team. It's kind of like a big battle or like a war. You're going, and then each of these mini moments are like battles that happen in there. And so there's kind of like a long game that you play. In sevens, like it's over so fast. What
So fast.
we say, what we would say on the Brazilian team is like a bounce of a ball. A lot of teams say this, like a bounce of a ball can make or break a game.
Yeah,
and it's down
absolutely.
to details. It's down to moments. It's how do you manage a game that's that fast, but also has these key moments that you have to make a decision if you go fast or you slow it down or you kick or not. And there are really strategic things to consider in that short amount of time, but also a moment.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest difference is playing scrum half? And again, for maybe some of our listeners who don't even know what a scrum half is, just give them a little bit of context there.
Yeah.
But what's the biggest difference playing scrum half in sevens versus 15?
Yeah, so scrum half, so you have key groups of players on the field. Your forwards are your big ball carriers, strong bodies that do a lot of what we call the dirty work. So you can't win a game without forwards.
They put in a lot of
You
work.
can't win a
They
game
put in a
without
lot of work.
forwards. I joke, like, I would like to be born in a different body one day to experience the glory of being a forward in a rugby match. But yeah, they do the scrum, so the big push against the other team when there's an infraction and the ball is reintroduced. And then the backs play oftentimes in more space, thought of as your like agile, have more speedy players. Not that there's just a size distinction, because that in modern rugby that is not the case.
Yeah.
And the scrum half is the person that helps link these two groups together. So in 15s, it's the person that will introduce the ball into these fixed formations like the scrum, the line out, and then get the ball out of the forwards and pass it to the back. So they are a real link between everyone on the field. And then in sevens, you really only have positions for the brief moments where there is a reintroduction of the game in play. There are scrums, there are lineouts, but they last literally half a second in sevens. So position-wise, everyone does a lot. And then in those key moments, it's the scrum half that does do the introducing of the ball in those moments. But yeah, so in 15s, I've played scrum half. Now I've kind of transitioned mostly out of that to play fly half and fullback. So other positions that do a lot of distributing and kind of reading the game. And I've always said, like, I'm not the speediest on the field. Like, I have some agility, but what I am really good at, and a skill that I was able to build up in my career, was reading the game well and setting other people up for letting their superpowers shine. Because I am 5'2", like, I'm not big. There are people that are faster than me, stronger than me, but what I really like doing is like setting up people to shine. And those are positions that you can really like put the ball where it needs to be in the right moment. Yep. And for me, I'm like, wow, you score the try because I know where it came from, and like that's awesome to be able
Game
to do.
IQ is a big deal.
It's fun. You see so many opportunities in a situation instead of like, I have a role and this is the one or two things I do. Like, as a coach now, like a lot of what I teach players is that the beauty of coming to practice and putting in the time is that you're able to build a lot of tools in your toolbox. And so people might read you as a big forward on the field, but you start to have some handling skills. You start to be a Swiss Army knife instead of a hammer. And then that becomes just a more dangerous team as a whole.
Yeah. Never assume, because I've been up against some players where you look at them and you would assume like, oh, it's probably like a prop. He's slow. And there's some of the most agile, fastest runners, and they'll like run circles around you. Like it's crazy. So everyone has a hidden talent.
Yeah, and that's the best part about rugby is you can like kind of try to read a player that's in front of you, but there's just so much that each player can do on the field once they know themselves and like the game and how to kind of choose the right tools at the right moment.
Yep.
So wait, which one do I like more, 15s or 7s?
Yeah.
I have two loves. They're different enough that I feel like I don't have to choose.
Okay.
That's fair.
We'll take that non-answer.
Nowadays, my body is really enjoying 15s because I don't have like the sprinting anymore.
Yeah, you don't have to run as much. That's fair.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, and keeps the hair looking good, right? When
Yeah.
you're back.
Well, I don't know. I came out of like mud on my face. I was like, how did this happen?
I just wanted to circle back to when you talked about joining your first rugby team in college. You're gay, right?
I am, yes.
Cool. Me too.
Yes. Good crowd.
I'm
good
still
crowd.
figuring it out.
Were you out at the time, and what was that like?
Yeah, no, when I was not out. I was starting to like kind of self-accept. And that only happened maybe halfway towards the end of college. Like it was looking back, I had a lot of feelings that I now have a lot of language and more vocabulary to name as being gay. And that was young when I was like in elementary school and like starting to have, or like middle school and having a crush on a best friend who was a girl and not being able to name those feelings or really how to put them or feel very alone in the experience because I didn't know anybody else that was going through that as a girl. And if there was maybe someone who other kids thought was gay, they got bullied real hard.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, geez, well, at least I'm not them. And let me pretend that I don't feel anything that they could possibly identify with because I don't want to get bullied like that. Yeah. And I was a tomboy in elementary school, like really loved playing soccer and moving my body. And my parents were just like, she wants to wear shorts, let her wear shorts. Like, what's the big deal? And did suffer a little bit of bullying, and that I didn't even realize that I was like, clothes is gender expression, and like it doesn't have to be, but in our society it ends up being, even if we don't want it to be. Exactly. Clothes are clothes, pants are pants. Like why there's no gender associated with those things. But they become symbols, and even for kids that aren't even at an age where that is appropriate, society does a lot of molding with a hammer, it's like not gentle at all, and
Trying to fit you into a box.
that doesn't fit you. And then I internalized a lot of that for a long time of wanting to fit in, wanting to just feel a little more normal in a society where being straight is normal, and so it was hard to like take a look at that, accept that on the inside, and then be okay with starting to like tell a girl that I liked her and bring a friend home over spring break and tell my parents. So I was like washing dishes, so like we don't have to look at each other, and just like, and that's my girlfriend, not just my friend, and look to the side. And my
How
parents,
did they take that?
They were so cute about it. They like, I had a lot of fear, and they did like, drying dishes, and my dad just asked if I was happy. And I said, yeah. And then my mom said, well, okay.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. In their own way, they said, well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's very sweet.
But I had a lot of fear, to just even say that. Even though deep down I knew that, like, my parents love me unconditionally and have always supported me. But what if something changes after that moment? There is a before and after. Yeah. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube kind of thing. And so no, when I discovered rugby, I was trying desperately to still fit in and be in boxes that weren't totally for me, at the same time starting to like feel rebellious in New York City and like test the waters in some ways, but really, really clinging still to like a lot of straight privilege, which is like, now I can look back and be like, I was young and scared. And
Survival.
It is, and that's so real. And I didn't have any of that language. And nowadays, I just feel very comfortable in myself, and teasing my mom that the mullet is not going anywhere, and like, and just like having tattoos and like dressing the way that I want and presenting the way that I want, and being very proud to have a girlfriend and like tell people, say all the words, not like So it's just. I get to look back and just be the adult that my 20-year-old self would have wanted to be friends with. Unfiltered.
Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. It's just like probably like a role model that my younger self really needed.
And do you feel like joining a rugby team kind of gave you more courage, or maybe a community where you felt accepted that allowed you to like flourish and be yourself?
Totally. And there was a lot of levels and like things going hand in hand. I on a rugby team had a lot of examples of people having girlfriends, expressing themselves differently, and like being in a space where that was not only encouraged but also supported. Gave me not only the examples of what that could be, but then just give me that impulse and that encouragement to test the water. Like, who am I if I could break out of these molds and start to just be myself? And so that was life-changing in college already. And then the process, like on a national team, of decidedly not going back, not putting toothpaste back in the tube, where there were very many moments of, we need a spokesperson for an event, and like not have that space as the person that I am, and be kind of propulsed into the spotlight and force the rugby union to either take a stand or not. And so in 2016 was huge, of like, your athlete has been proposed to on the Olympic stage, and they just reshared a photo. No statement. No, they know like press. They just like reshare, which is actually just a huge statement in itself.
It is, yeah. It's normalizing
baby steps, right?
Baby steps of like, we're not going to shy away from it, but like we think it's totally normal if we just like reshare.
Yeah.
So that was huge.
So you mentioned a national team. So you're obviously your rugby career's trajectory is very interesting. So do you want to share with us a little bit about that experience, how you got on a national team?
Yeah. So right about graduating from college, I was a bio major and a human rights minor at Columbia, and my plan was medical school. So marrying the basic science with the human element, going into healthcare. I knew I was going to need a year off to like study for the MCAT, to prepare an application, all that good stuff. And in those first couple of months post graduation and going on that road, the Brazil Rugby Union put out an open call for athletes ahead of Rio. So it was 2013 at the time, and they were in the process of building up their Olympic training program, because they're going to host the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games in 2016, want to boost their level of rugby. This was mostly for the men's team. The women's team at the time was South American champions, already been invited to several tournaments on the World Series, which was starting to brand itself and become a thing. So yeah, this was not for the women's team. I read this and was like, whoa, an opportunity for the women's team. And they were very much looking for male athletes. I sent them a message, and they're like, well, that's odd. We don't need female athletes. We have a great women's team. But the coach at the time was like, let me see what you got. Let's chat. So
Give
you
it
like,
a shot.
So I had to put together like a really big application. It's like, I'm already doing a big application for medical school, which anyone who knows what that is like, you write your biography and take all these tests and essay and write all these essays, and like, it's a big thing. But for the rugby, I had to basically do a little bit of that, of like send in video of me playing. I needed recommendations from coaches. I needed to like write basically a cover letter and then some, of like why I'm worth an investment of a spot. Not even that they would pay me any money at the time. They're like, it still messes up our logistics to bring you in. And then had like an interview with the coach. And then got invited for a tryout with the team. And I had to go to Brazil I had to pay my own way. They're like, no. If you're worth it, we might offer you a contract at the end of all of this. But you have to come spend like 5 weeks with the team and fly back and forth. Like, if you really want it, come, do your thing. So I launched a crowdfund, because I was like, I am a poor recent grad. I don't know what I'm doing. But I told people I have an Olympic dream, and I'm inviting you to come dream a dream with me. Will you help? And people came out of the woodwork, like friends from high school, college, friends of friends, parents of friends were like, what an opportunity.
That's so
and
exciting.
Also to get to know Brazil. I'd only ever visited and never lived there. And my parents have a kind of turbulent relationship with the country. Because they left in the middle of the military dictatorship. So, we're very disappointed in Brazil, and the promise that they believed that it should have had for them as like their country of origin. And they were like politically active college students at the time, and like they packed up 2 suitcases and left and had to say goodbye to friends and family for a very long time. And then I come and call my parents and go, so, hey, I think I'm going to go to Brazil. They're like, what are you doing?
I shake my fist at you.
We left for a reason. What do you mean to play rugby? So it was like so many layers of like, what was I doing? Why? And
you had an Olympic dream.
I had an Olympic dream.
Yeah, you got to chase your dreams.
Who'da thunk?
And so we kind of know how it ended. So so give us.
Long story short, was able to get down there, got offered a contract, and then told my parents. I pitched it to them like, hey, I really want to gun for Rio, which is like 2 years away, which is a crazy short amount of time to turn into an international rugby player and like train my way onto a team and
an Olympic
fight
athlete.
for a spot on a team that already had 3 fly halves and 2 scrum halves, and those are the positions that I play. And but made it on the team in Rio, and then decided to stay because I really wanted to feel like what it would be like to train without the time crunch
of the Olympics,
of the 2-year mark of like you have 2 years to just be this good.
Yeah.
It's like, what if we take away the time constraint and just go as deep as we can in getting to know the game myself, push my limits hard. I did push past many limits and get injured because of time constraints, all that stuff. But a little bit of disappointing the parents. Like, I'm not ready to come back yet. And then stayed for Tokyo. Plus the 1-year delay and all that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
a 2-year time frame turned into almost 8 years.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk about that Olympics and how it was kind of different. But before we do, I wanted to talk about the proposal moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Olympics.
Yeah.
2016, Rio. You're a rugby player playing for Brazil, and your girlfriend has a very public proposal at the Olympics. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And what it meant for you personally, but also what it meant for like being out as an athlete at the Olympics at the time?
Yeah, it was crazy. More than I think she was expecting or that we could have imagined. So after the games, the teams that are done playing are just like free to watch the rest of the games in the stands. I met my parents. Like, we had a great time watching the final together. And they are like, things are wrapping up, and they're like, well, we have to wait. If there's a medal ceremony, we're going to hit a lot of traffic. And I told them to go back to the hotel. We beat the traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm getting tapped, and like some media person was like, you have to stay back because you're going to do an interview on the empty pitch. And I was like, I just played at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Athletes are what? Hungry people. All right?
Angry people.
Angry. Yeah.
So I'm like, I planned out my snacks for the day and was not planning on staying an extra hour. So I'm just worried about like, how am I going to get back to the village? Is there food? What's happening?
How much food?
Is there food? I need to take a shower. Like, all these things are just like, I'm like, we're done. It was a 3-day tournament, so it was like much longer than normal. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, the adrenaline has gone down. Like, can we go home now?
Yeah.
And then like, we were in the same changing shed as Australia. They had just won gold. Like, they were like buzzing. And like, I'm getting pulled onto an empty field to like do an interview. And my team stuck behind, and I'm telling them like, go, I'll meet up with you later. Like, I have to do this stupid interview.
Like, stop being weird, leave.
Yeah, like, aren't you hungry? We went onto the empty field. Like, the lights are still on. Like, Australia is getting like corralled through the media to go do their post-match interview as the first time ever Olympic gold medalists. And I'm just like trying to soak a lot in. Like, I don't know where this interview is happening, but I'm like on this beautiful Olympic pitch in Rio. And then all of a sudden, like, I hear a familiar voice. It's over a microphone, and Marjorie is like saying something. I'm like, oh, she's probably telling people to leave this. She's venue coordinator. She's like telling people to leave the stadium, I guess. No, she like is in the middle of a little speech, and all of a sudden, like, my teammates have gone to one side and I'm alone, and I like finally my brain cells are rubbing together finally, and like, hey, listen up, we know what's happening. and she's proposing. And suddenly there are balloons. Like, I don't know how that happened. I didn't see that happen.
Wow.
And for like, I'm glad my teammates knew what I was the only one that didn't know what was happening, which was the funny part. And they stuck around, and it was, so my team that had turned into my family, and her team that was organizing the games on the other side, who had turned into her family in the past year. And we weren't super open while she had been working at the rugby union when we first met, because there were rumors about conflict of interest, all that. But then over that second year of her organizing the games from one side, me trying to fight for a spot to be at the games on the other side, and like our like little rugby family getting to know that journey pretty intimately along the way, like being in that stadium, it was super special. And I was like, who found the balloon? Who got the balloons? And then we just, went back to the village and had a lot of ice cream, because that's what was left out of the junk food. And God, we missed all like the other good stuff because we got there so late at the end of the day.
I love that even after your big public Olympic proposal,
Ice cream.
you're like, where's the food?
Where's the food? Athletes, man. That's all we think about.
Yeah.
And I was trying to call my parents, and like the team was like just shouting on the bus. And I was like, Marjorie proposed. And they're like, what, the hose? And I was like, oh my God. So finally, and then I'm like, we had to leave the village at the end of like the next day, because athletes in, athletes out, there's a fixed number of rooms in the village. Very few teams are able to have enough rooms for people to stay more than their competition window. So I had to like pack and leave. So I like turned my phone off, and I was like charging overnight, getting things ready. We had to be up early and leaving, and I'm trying to turn my phone on, and it's like freaking out. It's like almost exploding. It's like buzzing and this and that. I'm like, what's going on? And finally I'm like, just, it's pinging, like literally out of a movie, just like bing bing. Like I was like, and someone's like, oh, you turned your phone on. Because they have been like doing the things, and I'm like, what is happening? There's a little newspaper that circulates the village, and our photo was on the front page.
Oh, that's awesome.
Of like, I think they called it the Olympic Village. And so that was like, someone like handed it to me, and I was like, what? And then I have like so many messages from our media person from the rugby union trying to like get a hold of me, because there are interview requests. I have just like, social media was wild. I was just like, I don't even know what to do. Like Facebook was like, Facebook at the time, because I was like new on other platforms, but like Facebook was like stuck on like, it actually stops the number at the time. It was just like stuck on a number of like, it was like something is like maxed out the number of like notifications that it could give me. And I was like, what?
That's so exciting. What was
it? Was crazy. Like, so I didn't know what it meant to like go viral, but as I'm like trying to get a hold of my family, trying to leave the village on time, like trying not to get in trouble by people, like and there are a lot of requests coming in. Like, I thought I was just gonna be able to spend a week in Rio with my family, who came from the US to like watch the games and be with me, was suddenly now we have to like make a decision of, are we going to open our private life to people and the media and the public and say something about this? So Marge and I, we had a talk about like, I know you're busy, because she had to go back to work the next day because the men's competition was happening. And then she was also venue manager for like several other events in that same stadium. So like, she was full-time working. And I had to pull her. I was like, no, we need to talk about this. Like, I'm not going to do interviews if like we don't like, this is opening up our life to the public.
You want to be on the same page.
We had to be on the same page. And so we had a chat of like, what does it mean? Why do we really want to do this? Like trying to just like, we have 30 minutes because she has to go back to work. Do we have time? Like, what does this mean? And that's where I'm really grateful. Things come full circle. Like, I studied human rights in college. So I was like, this is important. This is really important, because even I, growing up, didn't ever see this. And now people want to interview us on CNN Live in Rio. Like, oh, that's scary.
Yeah.
But why? Because this conversation is happening, and someone has to be in the room or like in front of the cameras or be able to string together a sentence about why this is important. And so we're like, all right, I guess.
So it feels like this moment kind of propelled you into being like a leader in the LGBTQ sports movement. Was there a turning point when you realized that you could use your voice for advocacy?
Yeah, it was weird. It was in that first interview post games. It was CNN Live. Like they had like a 5-minute window, and they wanted to like chat with the girl that got engaged. And the first question actually they asked me was about something that had happened. A journalist outed athletes on a dating platform.
Oh wow.
Which was very bad. Which unethical on a lot of and dangerous.
Of course.
And like to the extent of like not using, obviously like, but we didn't use names, but like it was enough identifying information that ended up outing athletes on from countries where it is decidedly dangerous and criminalized to be gay, outing athletes because they were able to infiltrate a dating platform. And that was the first question they asked me. And that's where I'm like, thank goodness I read the news. and I basically was able to say that was bad in so many words. And why? It was because it's dangerous for the athletes. This is unethical. And also that it puts into light that the games are a really, warm, fuzzy event and celebration that come to town with its own set of values. And it really confronts the reality that athletes go home after this and that those values are not the same everywhere. And I was able to like frame that. And then I realized like not a lot of people are talking about this, and not like, I feel very grateful that a lot of the things that I've just verbalized are things that I like, conversations I have with friends and family already, and with people that actually do the advocacy work, and that being an athlete allows me to kind of just put a microphone in front of that, which is pretty awesome, which is something that I never thought that I would be able to do. But at the same time, just think back to like me at 16 could have really used an athlete.
Yeah, a role model.
Saying some of these things of role anybody in a public space of like, it's okay to be you, and then the full you doesn't go away or be diminished when you assume a public identity. Yeah. And being able to like say that to the rugby union, even our sponsors, of like, you get the full me. Like, I don't put part of myself in the closet just to wear this jersey. Like, and it means a lot to me, and it also means a lot to a whole group of these fans that cheer for this team and cheer for this sport. And like at the end of the day, it really is like, it's been really healing too, like in a selfish way of like, there are, right after the proposal, Marge and I got messages from people around the world like, yes, they would say like, we don't know you, you don't know me, but thank you. Like, I needed to see this. Yeah. And that's when it really hit home of like, oh, like, yeah, it sucks. I got less time with my family in Rio than I would have liked, but people needed to see this. Yeah. Even I needed to, past me needed to see this. Yeah. And that goes a long way of like seeing how things have changed in the past almost 10 years, seeing where the conversation has led, seeing how many other out athletes there are, being able to say like, it's not that there are more out athletes, but doesn't mean there are more gay athletes. It just means that now they might feel more comfortable being their full selves in front of the camera, as opposed to a sliver of just because it's probably safer.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful moment. I think it's like we always say that visibility matters, and so you spoke earlier about being a little girl and not knowing how to deal with the feelings, right? Because you liked one of your friends. Imagine that little girl watching TV and seeing,
crying,
So for those, that matters, because that was 10 years ago. So imagine those young kids that were able to see that on TV, where they're at now. they're adults now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a formative experience or moment for them as well. You may not know it, but it is. It matters, you know?
Yeah.
And it's different than like, watching Queer Eye or something like that. It's real life. It's
It's
the
not a character.
Olympics. It's not a character.
Yeah. And for us, that like what I tried, the interviewers were like, oh, how was it planned? All this stuff. I was like, for me, like it was supposed to be, and even Margie said this afterwards, like she specifically did it afterwards because like the media was supposed to have like followed the Olympic medalists to the media center, and like she has control over the stadium and it empty so that it could be like our little rugby family who was there. And that's what it meant. Like that's why like it took us by surprise when
it was supposed to be a private moment.
And it was, among like our closest friends, and like really marking kind of like this new chapter, being on that Olympic journey together. And so it's like wild to just see it like this. My mom like screenshot like the New York Times, and I was like, this is crazy.
So that was the Olympics 2016.
Yep.
And that was your first time at the Olympics. 4 years later.
5 years later.
Well, 4 years later, you're supposed to play
There we go.
rugby in the Olympics. The pandemic hit.
Crazy.
And the Olympics looked a little different in 2021 than it did in 2016.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what it was like to play at the Olympics during COVID?
It was a very different experience. We went from Rio 2016 being the home team. I'll never forget. We were lined up in the tunnel to go onto the pitch for our first game, and the stadium was like shaking with people screaming for Brazil.
Wow.
Because
Full
they knew
stadium, yeah.
full
That's
stadium.
so
It just
cool.
Brazil, cha cha cha, Brazil, cha, and like shaking. Where people like I like they would print the rosters and people would scream our names because they knew what number we were wearing. Like, excuse me, people I don't know were like, "Vai Izzy!" and like, "Go Izzy!" and you're like, "What?" Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah.
So that sort of energy of like Brazil really embracing rugby as this new sport, and like filling a stadium, not knowing what it is, to like sold out tickets, to Tokyo that was empty.
Yeah.
Nobody was allowed in the stands for public health reasons. We were tested every day, so we had to get COVID tested
Oh, wow.
every day, because if someone, and people did even if it's a bubble and all that, like people who work in the village are not in a bubble. Like there is some contact with the outside world.
Yeah, of course.
Just like going to your training venues, and like as much as you try to take precautions, and we even like were given a whole spiel of like masks and hand sanitizer and
6 feet.
all the things. And in the dining hall, like the big dining centers at the village,
At the Olympic Village.
yeah, there was plexiglass between every seat.
Wow.
Like
wow.
even if you were sitting with your team, like there'd be like a plexiglass
Yeah.
barrier.
Oh my goodness.
Crazy. It was like
and rugby
crazy
is a
time.
very
It's contact sport. Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone tested positive, you'd automatically be quarantined. And
Oh,
so
wow.
there were like protocols for how many reserves you could travel with, because you just had to have in a built-in contingency plan
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
like not just injury, but also like COVID positive. And we had been experiencing that like in pre-Olympic tournaments. That year was also like, I'll never forget, the first tournament back was in March 2021, and we went to Dubai because they're like, we'll host a tournament because you guys need to prepare for the Olympics. But we were quarantined to a hotel room. It was like you and your teammate in a hotel room. They delivered the meals. You would put your empty plates outside the door.
Wow.
You were only allowed outside to go to the bus to practice and back and into your hotel room. And it was, we're like, and we didn't realize like how much like contact you have with your teammates like on tour. Like you go to each other's rooms, like not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
It was wild.
It's like a fever
crazy.
dream.
Yeah, we're like, okay, we're here to play some rugby, and we just had to like, so like in those moments of like finally being outside of your room, like on the practice field, we're just like, moments of, I took it as like being really grateful. Like we get to do what we love with people that we love. And this is all very crazy, but we can make the most of this. And then you start, I also did the zoom out of like, but why are we even allowing sports to happen if the world is dying from this new thing? And what I frame it as, like, because it means something to someone for us to do this and represent resilience or grit or something, or even just like a cool thing that is totally separate from pandemic. Like maybe it's that escape.
Yeah.
Like we get to provide a lot of things, and for us, like really fulfilling to be able to do what we love and represent our country in a time like this.
Yeah.
So it was, a little fever dreamy being, and then the vibe in the village was very different. Like Rio was a party, like it doesn't take much to party in Brazil, but like just the vibe is like athletes you're among the best of the best, and everyone's like there for a certain thing, and there's just like this kind of buzzy energy in the village. And then in Tokyo it was like very much, there's like a tension kind of underlying all that, even though it was like pretty celebratory, like we're here, we were able to be here.
It was very tempered.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. Of like, oh, we're also kind of exhausted, like we made it but we're already exhausted, like all the things involved. So it happened. It was one of those, like, I individually was really happy, like I was able to peak physically at the right time, was able to do a lot of things as an athlete that I was, you create this idea, this vision of like what it means to be the best prepared you can be. And I felt that in Tokyo, but it's a team sport, and like collectively it was a pretty tough year for the team.
Yeah.
Because leading up to 2020, y'all were probably like ready to go.
It's
feeling like you're most physically fit, and then you had
a
this
hard stop
of a whole year where you probably weren't training.
Or
as
like
a team.
training separately, and then just getting people back in, like, and then nobody, I don't think it was talked about enough. It was just like the mental toll of like, I'll never, oh my goodness, the Olympics were canceled, and then a day later, the president of the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, Thomas Bach, he puts out a statement of like how athletes are like the beacon of hope for the world. And I'm lying in bed crying. And I read this and I laugh, because I'm like, beacon of what for who? Like, I am just as depressed as everyone else about this, of like, and then, so that was a bit of like a lot of just really contrasting images of like, look to your athletes for inspiration, and I'm like trying to just like get out of bed.
You're humans too at the end of the day.
are.
You're not a machine.
Not
you know what I mean?
machines.
Like,
So that was a weird moment of like, well, I'm just gonna do what I can. And there was a learning of like, what does showing up today look like? And showing up that day was like, we put our shoes on and we walked around outside.
Sometimes that's all you can do.
And sometimes that's all you can do. And then whatever your 100% looks like the next day, you try to give that. But it was really hard.
COVID was a weird time.
Yeah. I feel like we're still kind of coming to terms with a lot of those layers still.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think...
It's still a weird
I don't think...
still
in
a weird
different ways.
Things are not as they were before COVID. I don't know that they ever will, because I think it forever changed a lot of things. Like, there's companies that still have a remote or hybrid workforce, and I think that's forever going to stay, you know?
Yeah, it did change so much. And then for sport, it was just a weird year of reckoning with what do you do with team sports that like need close contact. And like, so then for rugby, a lot of it was like, well, we create a bubble and you can't have contact with people who are outside of this bubble. But the mental and emotional toll of that was very high. Really high. So what have you done post Olympics? What do you do now? Great question. It's funny, it's been 4 years since that Olympics, so it feels like I've lived another Olympic cycle. trying to be. There's a great. She's an academic in Brazil. She studies Olympic athletes, psychologist by training, and I got to meet her, work with her a little bit. She has a term. It's not an ex-athlete. You're a post-athlete.
Okay.
Because
like
you never, you never really let go. Like that's always a part of you. So
You'll forever be an Olympian.
forever an Olympian is true, and then also just a lot of that identity is still a part of you. Your baggage or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, the post-athlete life. I still play rugby, which I am very grateful for. So I play for Santa Monica Rugby Club. I do some coaching as well. So I coach sevens. Primarily, I've played in one sevens tournament last year. I tell them one tournament a year.
And that's all you get?
All this body can do. But yeah, and then took a little stint at LA 28, the organizing committee for the Olympic and Paralympic Games.
I will pick your brain about that later.
Oh, please. But yeah, they have an awesome athlete fellowship program. So specifically for retired athletes, giving them a taste of different industries that they work in. So I was on the insights and analytics team.
Okay.
Took my curious mind to the world of consumer research and marketing analytics. Got a taste of a lot of different use cases for what to do with the data that we have access to, which was awesome learnings, but ultimately stepped away from that to start transitioning to grad school. So I'm going to be a doctorate of physical therapy, starting a grad program to become a physical therapist pretty soon. So
well,
we might need you. Yeah.
Ozzie is retired from rugby.
Everything hurts.
But I feel like maybe a little bit of physical therapy, we could get you back out on the pitch.
Hey, I'm ready. One tournament is all the rebellion gets from me. I'm going to have your attitude.
Yeah. So yeah, physical therapy has, I worked for a little over a year as an aide in a clinic, and then started also doing some personal training. So it ticks a lot of the boxes in being helping people connect with their bodies, move better, take care of pain, recover to get back to doing what you love to do. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. I've worked with awesome physical therapists during my career, life-changing physical therapists. But also my post-athlete body just hurts most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious to just put more tools in my toolbox to see what sort of help I can give other people. You got this one body. Let's see what we can do in this lifetime.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And then really lucky to I'll stay local and hopefully just create some bigger roots here in Southern California.
And I'm moving back to Brazil, right?
I mean, I'll always have a foot in Brazil. Always, always. I fell in love with it even more. I had an idea of Brazil and probably romanticized it from maybe the flip side of my parents never wanting to go back. And I was like, but what is there?
Yeah.
But yeah, living there, it's a beautiful country. The people are some of the friendliest you'll ever meet. And I'm a little biased, but everyone who's been to Brazil
They'll
agrees.
say the same thing.
Yeah, the food is great. The weather is great. It's and they just have a way of an indomitable optimism about them of everything could be falling apart and they have no clear evidence of things are going to turn around, but the phrase everyone uses is it'll all be fine. It'll all be fine. Vai dar tudo certo. Everything will work out. Yeah. And it's the most common phrase in Brazil. Whatever is happening, they'll be don't worry about it. Vai dar tudo certo. It's all gonna be fine. And you're how do you know? That's what I would ask. What do you mean? How do you know? It's that neurotic American that comes and just what do you mean? Oh, that's super uptight about what do you prove to me? And it's I learned a lot about faith and really believing in it will all be fine.
I think we can all do with a good dose of optimism. Yeah.
Yeah, especially today. And I did want to shift gears a little bit and talk about trans inclusion in sports. I know that you are a big advocate for trans inclusion in rugby especially. Trans people have it really tough today. There's all sorts of discrimination and attacks on the trans community. And that's why I think that it's really important that we're having these conversations and bringing visibility to this issue and offering support and solutions. And
Yeah, and a lot of our rights in the LGBTQ community are founded on, like, based on the fight led by our trans brothers and sisters,
Exactly.
especially our trans sisters. So,
Yeah.
like, very grateful for all of that work and advocacy that has come before us. And yeah, in rugby, I think it's interesting because it is a sport based on bodies. So it feels like it just hits even closer to home that a lot of people in decision-making positions feel like they have the right to make policies that aren't super grounded in science, which is frustrating. And so, yeah, whenever this comes up, like, the first thing I just kind of level with everyone is like, look, nobody is going to pretend to be a woman, of, like, the big air quotes of, like, yeah, very discriminatory language for describing trans women. Nobody does that and puts themselves in that marginalized group that receives that much hate to win at a sport that nobody pays attention to.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to level set with everyone. Like, very few people are making a lot of money in women's rugby, and then take that out of the elite level at the community level. Like, the attack on women's sport comes from so many sides of, like, the underfunding for just basic access to facilities and pitches that are not full of, like, nails and rocks. Like, what about coaches that aren't just volunteers who really care about the sport and giving back to a women's team? What the referees for women's matches, are your top referees the women's matches, or are you putting whoever to just fill a spot and because they need the learning, and women's matches don't deserve quality referees and match officials? The list goes on and on of how many ways that women's sports are totally undervalued and attacked from many other sides.
Yeah.
And someone who just wants to live a full life, and that includes access to sport and access to a community and having friends and moving their body and having a lot of fun. Someone who wants to do that and also has taken the courageous step to just live their true selves.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me that that's going to bring women's sports down, because it's like, do you give money to your local women's team? Do you invest in women's sports? Do you watch women's sports? Do you complain when other people don't invest in women's sports? Or is this just your dog whistle for policing women's bodies?
Yeah.
A certain type of women's bodies,
Yeah.
because I am a cis woman and I get side-eyed and pretty aggressively talked to in women's bathrooms sometimes. Like, it's
all born out
wild.
of ignorance, unfortunately, and you're right. Like, I don't know of any marginalized group that has ever chosen to be a marginalized group. Why would anyone want to be that?
Yeah. And the argument of, like, oh, because you'll win at these sports. Also, we already have trans women competing, and they don't blow the podium up. Like, that's just a fact of, like, it's just another person competing in a sport, and there are physiological differences among all of these bodies competing in this sport. Like, nobody came after Michael Phelps for being a genetic phenomenon so that he won all the medals in swimming.
Yeah.
But he's also a cis straight white man, which is, like, another layer
That's
to
a whole
all
nother
of it.
rabbit
Like,
hole.
yeah, but there are these layers of, like, you can't talk about transphobia without talking about homophobia, without talking about racism, without talking about misogyny. Like, all of it goes hand in hand. And especially, like, my experience as a gay woman in rugby is very different than a gay man's experience in rugby or in sport in general. And so there are, like, the intersectionality of it all really comes to the fore. And so an attack on trans people is an attack
On all.
of
on
us.
all of our rights if we want to hide behind the very, very thin veil of privilege but at least we are not trans women. Like, that doesn't go very far.
Yep. As Dr. King said, in a threat to justice, what is it? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah.
So, It's so true. It was true then. It's true today.
Yeah, and then the other thing that people say about, oh, but we're doing it for safety reasons, like limiting trans women's access to sport in rugby, as like a safety issue. That's where I go, as like someone who has like participated in scientific research, had like understands the scientific process. There is a vacuum of legitimate science to back any of that up. There's a real need for more longitudinal studies, for actual like research based in a very sound scientific method and not biased research. And yeah, my argument for that also is based in like, before all this hoopla related to trans women in sport, there already is a diversity of bodies in this sport. There already is, like, if you take the smallest player on the field and the biggest player on the field, there can already be an argument about safety with that.
Yeah.
And the argument that someone now will come in and just be totally beyond that is very hard to, for me, as like also one of the smaller people on the field. Like, if you're worried about my safety,
don't be.
but also, like, I put a lot of work in so that I can tackle the big people, but also care about our pitches, care about the quality of our training facilities, care about research for women's bodies and periodization during menstrual cycles. Like, that needs money too. Care about like investing in coaches so that women's sport isn't just an afterthought. So all of these things, like, if you're really worried about safety, like, the bar is on the floor for where you can start.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of focus on trans women in women's sports. But we have a ton of trans men who are playing in a league that's mostly men, who are some of our best players.
Yeah. But that's where you really like take the way off the pig there, and like show like that's actually not, there is no real concern for safety, because if there were, there would be a whole lot of people coming in saying, but please protect the trans men.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they don't. It really
comes
one-sided because it becomes about really policing women's bodies and not at all about safety concerns.
And it even goes back to the bathroom argument, right? Is, keeping trans women out of public bathrooms, but then as soon as a trans man walks into the women's bathroom, everyone's up in arms, freaking out.
But you're like, but wait now.
Isn't this what you wanted?
But you wanted this.
Yeah. So definitely
the hypocrisy
feels very
just
one-sided.
and it's just the hypocrisy becomes even harder to hide. And that's it. We got to call it for what it is, and just keep showing up, just using all our words to say that trans people belong in sport.
Trans people belong in sports.
Trans people belong. Period.
A lot of what I questioned and had to question, whether it was like becoming a spokesperson, speaking out about these issues, using my platform, and now in this post-athlete life of like, how do I still talk about these things even though I'm not like a professional athlete anymore? It is understanding like, what is your sphere of influence? Like, I encourage people, don't isolate yourself in a bubble. Yes, I think it's very healthy and necessary to have safe spaces, but how often do you lean into an uncomfortable conversation to really dialogue? To really ask someone like, wait, like, tell me more. Like, what do you think? Like, where did you get that information? Like, well, can I share my experience with you? Like really leaning in with a bit of curiosity, because it is just in those individual interactions that things really start to move forward. It's like we say in Brazil, it's like the work of ants. Of like, it seems so little, but it's like the boots on the ground work. It's the conversations. It's maybe your mom really doesn't like XYZ, and then you talk to her and she realized, oh, like, your friend is still a nice person, and you're okay. And your friend is trans. Okay. Like, that makes a big difference, because then your mom might tell her friend that she's changed her mind, or that your friend is actually a really nice person, but it's okay, we can just forget about that, whatever it takes. But like, those are small changes that can add up. And I also encourage, like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. my partner Emily, she has a thermos for coffee that she takes to work, and on one side there's a trans flag, and on the other side it says "Protect kids, not guns." like stickers go a long way. Like people just like leave it somewhere. If you don't want to have conversation, like there are so many ways. Like think about what is your little work of ants that you can do. If it's a pin, if it's a sticker, it like I notice every shop that I go into that has a little flag on the outside, because it's just like your eye is drawn to it. And you're like, it's like, oh, I can like relax a little bit because they actually made an effort to like put a little pride flag on their window, which is a visible thing for a shop.
Which is a big deal because a lot of places are taking them down because they're afraid of like backlash. And
it's better to just be silent and safe than stand your ground and just not stay silent.
So when you do see those flags or those stickers, you know that it was a calculated effort for them to make it visible and put it out. And we appreciate it. We see it. We notice it. So thank you.
Yeah, like it's maybe you just don't let that joke slide next time. Maybe you did a whole bunch of times up until now, but maybe there's one time you'll say something. And like then those things start to add up. Like it might feel small, but like ripple effects are real.
Yeah,
for sure. Anyway, this has been a really fun episode.
I have so enjoyed my time with y'all. Seriously.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Izzy, for taking the time to talk with us.
Of course.
And to our audience for tuning in to another episode of the Gay Rugby Podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the bell to change your preferences to notify all. And yeah, thank you for your support.
And remember,
don't just play the sport.
Change the sport.
I want to get on that one.
Yeah.
No, this is awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Izzy. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Gay Rugby Podcast. If you liked this video, do us a favor and subscribe. Hit that bell to change your preferences to notify all, and that way you'll get a notification every time a new episode comes out, which is going to be every Monday. So share this video with a friend, like, comment, and we appreciate the support. We'll catch you on the rugby pitch. See ya.